It is time to bring the power of positivity, that negativity we brought last week. That is in the past. The Browns have won. They beat the Jets on Monday Night Football in front of a national audience, in front of past coaches. The Browns, Baker, OBJ, the stars of the nation, America's team, as Drew has reminded
America's team.
many times here. Man, it's been a busy week in the NFL. And let's dig into that right now. A lot has changed around the NFL, especially the AFC North. Drew, we're going to kick it off with you here. Browns win. Man, what do you make of all the changes to what's going on to our rivals in the AFC North?
Yeah. So big win. Defense played exceptional. And I'm not above what happened 1 year ago when we named an opossum as our unofficial mascot as the team got their first win in 20 some games, and we opened Bud Light victory fridges for the first time. Like I am not one to complain about a 20-point victory. Obviously, the offense is not as crisp as we think it can be, but there is no need to panic. There's some things that they can clean up. But in general, that was a good win. That was a Jets team that didn't have their full squad, but to go out and win by 20, there were only two teams that had a bigger margin of victory. One of them was the Patriots playing the Dolphins, right? So let's not get ahead of ourselves, and let's not forget our roots here, and let's not extrapolate only the negatives that we saw to say, well, if they play like that against the Rams, they're going to be toast. Like you don't know that that's going to happen, right? So there, like I said, there is some things to clean up, but I don't want to really focus on those. My main thing I'm going to be looking at for next week is the plays have to get in sooner. That was my biggest issue with the offense. It wasn't the protection, which I thought was better and wasn't great, but it was improved. They snapped the ball with like 1 second or 0 seconds on the play clock, like 15 times. Just a ridiculous amount. There's no time when they get there to run motion, to figure out if it's zone or if it's man. They can't make pre-snap reads because there's not enough time pre-snap. So that's my biggest issue with the offense. I think if they get that play in 5 to 10 seconds sooner, you will see this offense take the step that we think that it should take. In terms of the of the rest of the AFC, unfortunately, the running back in Baltimore looks a little better than we thought he would look. 596 yards passing, 126 yards rushing. The Ravens are 2-0. They have played two of the three worst teams in the league in the Cardinals and Dolphins. So it's hard to say exactly what they're going to look like, but he appears to have corrected some of the big issues with accuracy, especially down the field. He was able to hit some players in stride. So I'm going to be looking to see what they do against some better teams with tighter coverage. I'm going to look to see if that keeps up, but. I think the big thing to talk about is the Steelers, and we could spend probably the whole podcast talking about this. It is fun to talk to Steelers fans these days because this is the end. We are witnessing the end of the golden era of the Steelers. We are witnessing it live in color. It is
4K.
Wonderful to see. And, this is a team that is panicked. This is a team that does not know how to handle having the third best roster in the division. And you can tell they are absolutely panicked when they do things like trade away their first round pick after they've already lost their starting quarterback. And they trade that for Minkah Fitzpatrick, who is a good player. Don't get me wrong. He fills a need. He's a good defensive back. That's one of their biggest issues on defense. But that pick can and should have been used to draft one of the good college quarterbacks that are available. There's Justin Herbert, all of the guys for the Heisman. Sonia named about 1,000 of them when we went through that. Took all of the guys I wanted to talk about. But there's a lot of guys, a lot of players, Tua, that if you have a top 10 pick and you're willing to give up a second rounder and you're willing to make some moves, which they have, they could have addressed that position. And what they're saying is they are fully committed for the next 2 to maybe even 3 years of 38-year-old Ben Roethlisberger coming off Tommy John surgery, and Mason Rudolph, a guy that was a third-round pick that they are hoping everyone in the league, including the Steelers, was wrong about when he was coming out of college. And this is a team that just sounds like a real panic move to me. This is a team that has allowed 890 yards in the 2 games they've played. This is a team that has only rushed for 113 yards versus allowing 250. And all of this despite being even in the turnover margin. And you think that that's going to improve with essentially a rookie quarterback? Like, we could spend a lot of time talking about this, but the Steelers don't have a first-round pick next year. They don't have a third-round pick next year, and this is coming into a season when they're probably going to lose a significant amount of games just based on the nature of trying to deal with Mason Rudolph, who has yet to start an NFL game. So you're going to see some rookie mistakes. You're going to see the Steelers struggle this year, and they've already traded away the benefit of struggling. So I think we are witnessing slowly the gradual decline of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I am here for it. I am here for it.
Eric, what do you think? What do you think coming off this win against the Jets, how we should feel about the competition in the AFC North?
Well, first of all, Drew, can I get some type of guarantee in writing that this is the end of the golden era?
No.
until I
no,
see
that zombie has a way of coming back to life.
I hope you're right. But we'll get to that. But as far as last night's game is concerned, Myles Garrett, he was doing Myles Garrett things. He was shedding offensive linemen off him and en route to the backup, and then the backup to the backup quarterbacks. What I did not like was his personal foul penalties, late hits. I know he's really anxious and really wants to show that he can be the defensive player of the year, which was his goal, but he's got to be a lot smarter. This was not like a Bradley Chubb egregious penalty that occurred earlier or occurred on Sunday, but he legitimately hit him after he threw the ball. So he's got to be smarter. Other than that, I mean, you can't complain about anything he's doing on the field. Maybe make sure the ball moves before you jump off sides. That would be my other complaint. But, all in all, I mean, the defense looks really solid. I really don't know how I feel about the secondary right now. They were largely, didn't hear of them, but that's because the quarterback couldn't throw the ball to his receivers. I remember that little guy for the Jets who caught the one in the silent, Robbie Anderson. Caught the ball silent. Yeah. Not that Wayne Corbett. Not him. Good receiver,
you
though.
Guys switch sides here.
But yeah, Denzel Ward was on coverage of that play. It was one play. I hope that was an anomaly. But they're obviously going to get challenged this week. But I like to really see, how they're handling facing 3 talented wideouts as opposed to 1.5 with third-string quarterback. Offensively, I would have thought they would have gone to Chubb a little bit more. He obviously had a great 19-yard touchdown run in the second quarter and had some decent plays in the second half. But I just feel like, I don't know if they were trying to get Baker going because they, trying to want to get him in rhythm. He had his issues ending last game with 3 interceptions. Obviously, that wasn't the case. I read somewhere that, Baker's been taking about a half second longer to release passes this year, and you cannot do that. He's one of the best quick release quarterbacks, and he's finding his targets. I don't know if he's uncomfortable with a line or if he's looking to see the play develop a little more, or he's looking for certain targets. But Freddie said that's his responsibility to make sure the ball comes out of his hand quicker. So I like to think that that's going to get addressed pretty soundly this week, and hopefully he'll be tightening that up next Sunday. So that's kind of where I stand. Like Drew said, a 20-point win over any team I'll take. I don't care that they're on their third string quarterback. I'm not going to complain. It wasn't exciting. It wasn't like, this is, edge of your seat, but it was. Browns don't have too many opportunities. I've seen a ton of Ohio State games where they're playing terrible teams and they play down to their competition. This is one where we're not playing down to our competition, and it was good to see. You were supposed to beat them, they beat them. They covered. I mean, so that was some point of complacency, I guess, and I hope they do that more often this year. If I could get into the AFC North, the Baltimore Ravens, as mentioned, 2-0 against two of the worst teams in the league. I'll say Lamar Jackson's, a little better than I anticipated, but you'd be hard pressed to put him as one of the better quarterbacks. So I'd like to see what he does this week. He's not going up against a good defense in Kansas City, but he's going up against a good offense that might force him to try to make big plays that he might not be able to do. So, that's what he's up against. The Cincinnati Bengals, 0-2. They lost a tough one in week 1, and they got blown out last week at home. And now they face the 2-0 Bills, who I have no idea how good they are. They beat both teams from New Jersey. That's right, New Jersey.
Great state.
So again, they could easily win that, or they get demolished as well. And then it comes back to the black and yellow team that. I mean, that was crazy watching, seeing Big Ben go down, and Mason Rudolph. He actually played halfway decent. I think the fans got a little more excited than they should have. I think they're kind of thinking he's the next savior of the franchise or the next franchise quarterback. I think that might be a little premature. That he did keep it close against the Seahawks, who was a very good team, but I like to see. We're seeing Baker Mayfield go through his 15th. It's going to be a 16th game. He's had his ups and downs, and he's a first overall pick who's got a lot of tangibles to intangibles, a lot of good leadership qualities. I have no idea regarding Mason Rudolph, and I don't see that coming. They're traveling to San Francisco. Like I said, San Fran beat the brakes off Cincy last week. I think they're good, but I think they should be good enough to beat Pittsburgh. So looking at the division, I would hope at least one of the three teams loses. If two, I don't think three, but hey, one can dream, can lose this week. That would really help out the Browns. The Browns just need to score that minor upset at home, and it'll be a great week for Cleveland Browns.
Coming up against the Rams this Sunday night. I'm going to be here at this game in Cleveland for that game. Also be at the Ohio State-Miami game on Saturday.
Nice.
That should
nice
be
little weekend.
Yeah, nice little weekend there. But, man, another big test for the Browns as they have to face that Rams defense. Rams offense, we'll see. I like the Browns defense against the Rams offense. I think it's going to be tough. Our offense against their defense. Eric, what do you think about this upcoming matchup? Another tough one. Do you think the Browns are going to show this national audience that they're for real against a Super Bowl contender?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to show an improvement over the Jets game. I don't know if they're going to win, but I think they're going to hold their own against the Rams. Rams are coming off a narrow victory at Carolina in week 1, and then they Drew Breesless Saints. They kind of took it to him 27-9, Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, you got to throw your whole offensive playbook out the window once Breeze went down. So that's kind of a small qualifier in my book. But, looking at keys to victory or ways the Browns can kind of, get the win. I'm not even going to say keep it close. I don't want to keep it close. I want to get the win. Is their inconsistencies within their offense has got to be severely reduced, if not eliminated. As I had already discussed, it's the quick snaps for Baker or quick releases for Baker, the early snaps for the offense, not snapping it with one. So you can, if you see Aaron Donald switching sides, you see, a guy crashing off the edge, you can make those adjustments in a timely fashion. Defensively, like I said, I don't know what to expect outside of the front four. I mean, Kirksey's been looking solid. I'm not sure about the other three. I think Schobert, he graded well. I didn't really notice him too much on the field. If he's just making tackles, that's great. That's all you could ask for. But I'd like to see the Browns force some turnovers. I guess there was that fumble recovery against Le'Veon Bell, but they have not been able to get hands on other teams' passes. Now that goes back to the Jets not having somebody capable of throwing the forward pass last week. But they're, Jared Goff, he's a very good quarterback, and if they can force a couple of interceptions, I really like their chances. And last but not least, I had referenced earlier that trio of Cooper Kupp, Brandon Cooks, and Robert Woods. It's going to be a tough matchup for the Browns, and I think Ward, Greedy, and Money Mitch are going to have their hands full. And I really hope that Demarius Randall gets back from his concussion, because the other safeties did an admirable job last week, but I really trust him, and I'm confident in him in the passing game for the secondary for the Browns.
Yeah, it's a lot of hope for the rest of the season. We still have a lot of guys who haven't played their first game yet, including Kareem Hunt. Drew, what do you think about this upcoming matchup? I'd love to see Denzel Ward show up here and get some turnovers.
Yeah, it'd be nice. It'd be nice to have some sort of turnover from the secondary. We haven't really seen a lot of that. But what we have seen, and again, this might be a reflection of some of the competition that they faced up to this point, but from what I can tell, Greedy Williams is the highest rated defensive rookie, period, bar none. He is without question the highest rated coverage player. So essentially the second round pick that the Browns invested has turned into what appears to be a top 10 type talent. And again, it's early, right? They played a Jets team that isn't very good, who lacked the ability to throw the ball, and the Titans don't have a whole lot of playmakers at the wide receiver position. So it might be a little early to get into some of that. But again, you can only guard the guys in front of you, right? You can't match up against Odell Beckham Jr. every play if he's not on the field. So I'm really excited about how well he has played, and he has earned the starting job at this point. I expect to see that for the rest of the season. So that's wonderful. I'd like to see Ward. He has not looked as sharp. Ryan, to your point, a couple of completions to Robbie Anderson, and some of those were on the blitzes that got picked up. And so there's no reason to panic about Denzel Ward. He's still the team's unquestioned number one cornerback, but I would like to see him play a little better, but that's sort of nitpicking. In terms of the Rams, yeah, they are 2-0. They've beaten two NFC South opponents in the Panthers and Saints, and their offense is pretty good as well. We mentioned Aaron Donald already, but this is a team that has the 7th most rushing yards. They've scored the 7th most points. They've done that against two decent defenses in the Saints and Panthers. Those aren't pushovers. They've put up 729 yards of total offense in 2 games. Versus only allowing 587. So, this is a good team, top to bottom. And, I think that the defense can I don't want to say shut them down like we saw on Monday night, but can play well against this group. This is, a group that was in the Super Bowl, though. So I don't want people to expect them to shut this team down. But I think they actually match up fairly well, assuming the cornerbacks have a good game. They'll look to find Cooper Kupp, on the from the slot on a lot of underneath stuff. He's been a really good player for them, sort of a surprise. So I'll be looking forward to that matchup to see if that's something we can scheme against. But the linebackers, Schobert, Kirksey, they played great against the Jets, and they are two of the best coverage linebackers. And so a lot of the Rams, they use Austin Eckler in the passing game. And so I think we're going to have a pretty good matchup there. On offense, Eric talked a lot about this, but my biggest thing again is I'd like to see the play in a little quicker. They need to run some type of motion. It's obvious that Baker is struggling to diagnose what he thinks is man, and it turns out to be zone. Greg Williams knew this was one of his weaknesses, and that's what he did all throughout the game. And it wasn't until they hit him with a zone beater on the OBJ slant with a blitz. It was a great call against a defense like that. And I love that it was the angel look. The safety was 25 yards off the line of scrimmage, and Odell still toasted on that. That felt pretty good. So I'm looking forward to seeing if they can figure out how to beat zone coverage, because that has really stifled this offense up to this point, and it's becoming a trend. And so until you show you can beat it, that's what you're going to get.
All right, so we've talked a little bit of Roethlisberger. We're going up against Sean McVay's team. Maybe we'll work in some Wally Zerbiak, maybe some Ron Harper, some more Miami players here.
Sure.
Yes.
All right, first, I don't know if we're going to make a baseball connection to Miami players, but let's talk some Tribe. Right now, the Indians are beating the Tigers, the hapless taking Tigers right now. Series against the Tigers, series against the Phillies, and a series coming up next week against who do we have next week? We have the
White Sox.
White Sox. Yep. So some games that are going to be tough, some games that we should definitely win here. How do you like our chances in this week? It was a tough weekend against the Twins with that called off game and going into a doubleheader. Really disappointing there, but we snuck out Sunday with a win. Drew, what are you looking forward to this week with the Tribe?
Yeah, it's a pretty big week. They are 1.5 games behind the Rays. They're 2.5 behind Oakland, behind the A's. And the A's have a fairly easy schedule coming up. They have the Royals. I think they have 2 more against the Royals. After that, they get the Rangers, which are capable of putting together some good games, but they're hardly murderers row. So I don't know that we're going to catch Oakland. So my focus goes to Tampa Bay, and Tampa Bay's got a couple games against the Dodgers, and then they have 4 against the Red Sox, and then 3 against the Yankees. So the Red Sox are not what they've been, but they're still a decent squad, and so I think that becomes the team that we have to catch now. And only being a game and a half back, that's that's just 3 or 4 decent games in a row, and you've essentially made that up. So I think they have a really good chance to catch them. They do get the Phillies next. The Phillies have a really good lineup. So it'll be an interesting thing. That's sort of strength on strength. The Indians pitching against the Phillies offense behind Rhys Hoskins and Bryce Harper. This is a good lineup. And this is a tough team. This is a team that they're over 500 now. They're not going to make the playoffs. They're 5.5 back at this point. So there's a chance we might get them when they're just sort of mailing it in, knowing that the season's over for them. But certainly not a team you can take lightly. So we have to come out and so long as we can win a couple of these series, win 2 out of 3 here, 2 out of 3 there. I do think that they will catch the Rays, provided that they keep winning these series. I think the Rays have a pretty tough schedule coming up.
Eric, what do you think about the team's psyche as we go into the playoffs? Do you think we're coming from a position of strength? Do you think there's any momentum going into the playoffs?
Well, stop me if you heard this one before, but another injury. So I don't know if that helps. Jason Kipnis is likely done for the season with another wrist injury. So his backup made a nice catch tonight. He's another young guy who I've not heard of. So, for the psyche of the locker room, that's not the best of news. Hopefully him and Naquin and Jose can, rally these guys as whatever bystanders. But I'm just hoping these young guys can just play over their heads. There's no film on them. I know it's not as prevalent as football, but they don't really know how to pitch these guys because they haven't seen them. Maybe these guys can do stuff that nobody's expecting. So that's what I'm going to be hoping for. To Drew's point, yes, you can put it in pencil, you can put it in pen, whatever. The A's are going to the playoffs. That's for certain. They are too hot. They're playing, like you said, the Royals and Rangers. They should win 4, if not all 5 of those games, and I think that's going to be enough to put them in right there. Then we got Detroit, Philly. I would hope we can get 5 out of 6 is what I'm pulling for. Realistically, maybe 4 and 2. And looking at the Rays with the Dodgers and Boston, I would love for them to lose all those games. But if they can go just under 500, maybe 2 and 4, maybe 3 and 3. 2 and 4 would be great. If we can go 5 and 1, we would have caught the Rays at that point, and then we're facing that last week. But I would like to at least make a game up on the Rays this week, so we're only half game out of when we're talking next week at this time. It's interesting how baseball goes. The Indians were all hurt in the beginning and they were playing very poorly. Then they get hot and now they're kind of cooling off. The Rays were kind of consistent all year. They were hot about 2 weeks ago and now they're starting to cool off. And anything can happen. I mean, I remember 2013 when the Indians won 10 straight games just to make that 1-game wild card. So I'm not going to rule anything out. I guess that would counteract my earlier point, but I'm still taking the A's for the playoffs. I can't wait. These injuries are kind of tough pill to swallow, but if we can get some of these pitchers back, and they're not giving up leads late like they were on Saturday night, that was a very deflating game. If they can, get their head screwed on, they can. Hopefully we'll be talking about a 1-game wild card and. Some excitement for some type of postseason baseball in Cleveland.
All right, let's move into the final promo. And this is a position of expertise that we're talking about. And that is the art of tanking. And man, it's been 2 weeks into the NFL season. And it seems like there are a lot of teams who are getting ready to, or are in the process of tanking. Miami Dolphins. Everyone has got their eye on a couple of the great quarterbacks that are coming out that Eric has mentioned in his Heisman Trophy previews. What kind of advice would you guys give? We went through some really rough times as Browns fans, going through a tanking period, and now maybe we're on the other side. Drew, let's start off with you here. What advice would you give to other teams that are going through tanking?
Oh, man. You have to keep the end goal in mind. What you can't have is things like where you give up a 2nd-round pick for Josh Rosen, where you trade away a 2nd round and a 3rd-round pick for Andy Dalton's backup quarterback. You cannot short circuit the process, right? And so I use that term very much on purpose. Out here where I live, there was a gentleman by the name of Sam Hinkie who took the 76ers through a very transparent and blatant tanking process, almost as transparent and blatant as the Sashi Brown and now the Miami Dolphins. And the fact of the matter is tanking works. And so you have to try to keep that end goal in mind. I will take this fight. This is a hill I'm prepared to die on. The worst thing you can be in professional sports is average. If you are an average team, that means you go 7-9, 8-8. You maybe squeak into 9-7 in the NFL and probably miss the playoffs. That means you're the number 8 or the 7 seed in basketball. In baseball, it means you always just barely miss the playoffs. You're like 5.5 out in September with no hope really of making it. And in hockey, it means you're one of these teams that might be able to pull off a miraculous upset in the first round, but you know you're not going to win the Stanley Cup. It is the worst place to be because you have this hope and you think, well, maybe, but at the end of the day, you lose the ability to get the superstars, and you end up in this purgatory, right? And so there's not all average teams are created equal, right? You know, if the Browns were to go 9-7 this year, that's a step in the right direction. It's probably not what we all hoped for, but there's a young nucleus there, and you have to crawl and walk before you can run. But you know, if you're like any other team, like, you know, if you have veteran players and you're fighting and you get to 500. You know, all you do is you're just a year older the next year, and you don't have the superstar, whether that be the pass rusher, whether that be the quarterback, you know, whatever it is that your team needs, you have no chance of getting them in the draft, whether that be basketball, especially that's true therefore. So you have to keep the end goal in mind when you're eating losses for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It is not fun. You end up being the jobber. You go out there and you just get obliterated.
Late start.
Yeah, you just get obliterated. You know you're going to lose. They don't even announce your name. You don't get any entrance music. You get nothing. You're just standing there in the ring while the guy walks in, and that's the end of it, right? The match is over in 45 seconds. The crowd gets to laugh, and everybody has a good time at your expense. And that goes on for an entire year. And in the case of the Sashi Brown tank, it goes on for 2 years. But you have to keep the end goal in mind, and you cannot try to take shortcuts where you give up a second-round pick that'll end up being the 33rd overall pick for Josh Rosen. You cannot give up the 33rd overall pick that becomes like Nick Chubb and a third-round pick for for Andy Dalton's backup quarterback. I'm not even going to name him. Like, it's just you have to avoid the temptation of shortcuts. So eat your L's for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It builds character, and you'll come out stronger than ever on the other end of it.
All right, Eric, I dare you. Please tell us why or any team around the NFL shouldn't tank. We're the experts here.
Why shouldn't
why
you?
not? Yeah.
I guess if I had to make an argument, I would say you should not tank because you should always fight to win and always play your hardest every game.
Okay, why should they tank? Why should they tank?
I mean, well, I was going to have a word of advice to say for fans is to divest yourself and to have good hobbies. The last 3 years or so, outside the first half of the last year, not included the second half, and the 2 years or 3 years prior to that, I had a lot of great Sundays. We went on hikes. We took the kids out, enjoyed the fall weather. And then, you go home, check your phone, check your TV. You say Browns are down 28-7 third quarter. Don't even have to watch. There's no stress. You're not upset. You're not worried. You're not, angry. There's no expectation. So that's fine. I mean, I still follow, I still support and follow them, but there's really no time to waste in following a loser when that's what they're going to do. I remember those many, many, many years between 2001 and 2014, where the Browns were 4-5 wins. So they were just below average. And I remember kind of getting my hopes up at the beginning of the season, and they would lose brutal games by like 2 points, 3 points here, and then it would go off the rails. So at least you had a little bit of hope. But, the 16 and 17, you could see that coming. I think they played a close game to start the 16 season, a couple of them, and then those wheels went off immediately. So, yeah, ultimately it is the end game. It's a long goal. It's, understanding you're going to have to, take your medicine before you get to the top. But, yeah, those 4-5 seasons many years ago, those wins were awesome, but those 11 or 12 losses were just brutal. And, if it means having a couple bad years, that's, totally understandable. If you're finally in a situation where you can acquire these talented players to push you over the top. To Drew's point, yes, it's easy to rebuild. You just have to have a guy who knows what he's doing in charge of taking players. I think John Dorsey does. I can't say that for other GMs. So I don't know who the next GM of the Dolphins is going to be, but he's going to have a very difficult he or she, I'm sorry, will have a difficult task ahead. Is, you got to hit on most of these people, if not, I don't want to say all of them, but a vast majority of them. So,
that's a super attractive GM job, though, man. You have 3 first-round picks, one of which is the Steelers. That's going to be pretty high. The Texans, right? Like
right.
They've stocked up the war chest, and to their credit, they sort of did it in 1 year. And so I'm going to look forward to see what this Dolphins team turns into.
Tanking for Tua, it might pay off. We'll see.
Right.
It's just couple wins, couple losses, another team jumps in there. All right, well, thanks, guys. I'm glad we're not tanking anymore.
It's nice to not be tanking, but if you've got an average to just below average team, go ahead and roll out the tank. You'll be happy in 3 or 4 years.
Tanking ain't easy. Right,
nope.
Drew?
No, it's not.
Tanking ain't easy.
All right, thanks, guys. Let's see the Browns beat the Rams here. I'll be there at Buckeyes, Red Hawks. I'll probably be rooting on the Buckeyes, but go Miami.
We won't tell anyone.
Represent the alma mater there. And let's show the nation what the Browns are really about here. Thank you, guys. Let's talk about a win next week. Go Browns, and have a good week.
Browns. Talk to you later.